I don't think Eddie Howe is getting the praise he deserves at Newcastle United so far. The turnaround of that club has been absolutely fantastic, but the form Newcastle are in, second in the league in 2022. And I'm aware they played a few more games than other teams, obviously 2 more games than Man City, so Man City win both them, they go above Newcastle in the 2022 calendar year Premier League table. However, I don't think Eddie Howe is getting enough praise for the job he's done. I think it's too easy to just look and blame the January transfer window, or just say, well, yeah, of course they're doing well because of the January transfer window. I think it's a lazy argument, and it obviously contributes to the turnaround in form. Of course it does. But I actually think their signings don't get enough credit either. Don't think the managers get enough credit, and I don't think the signings are getting enough credit. Now, I was going to do this video last week, and I wish I had. I ran out of time. But since then, the strength of my argument here is somewhat weakened. Obviously, they've gone on to win 2 games, so you'd imagine that would actually help me. They beat Leicester City the weekend, beat Crystal Palace last night. So you must be thinking, well, Gio, surely that helps you argue your case. It doesn't. And the reason being, because a large part of my argument was that Bruno hadn't started that many games for Newcastle. He'd only started 4 Premier League games. So when you point at the January transfer window, he's a big part of that. The most money went on him. But since last week, he started 2 games and he scored 2 goals and was man of the match against Leicester at the weekend. Brilliant. Nice one, Bruno, mate. Thank you very much. But I'm sticking with it because it's not changed my opinion that Eddie Howe has done a brilliant job at Newcastle and just not getting the credit he deserves thus far. Now, before I get into it, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. If you're a Newcastle fan or you just enjoy these videos, do drop a like on it. It helps me by clicking the thumbs up button as well. Leave your comments below. I'll get interactive later this evening and see what your thoughts are on Eddie Howe at Newcastle. But back to my argument. And I think to say that the only reason he's doing well is because of the January transfer window is such a lazy argument, and it just doesn't hold up. So let's take a look at that January transfer signings, because the big one, Bruno, a fantastic player, none doubt, and obviously he's done really well recently, but he struggled to get into the team when he first arrived. Eddie Howe's been very patient with him, and that's credit to the midfield at Newcastle, credit to the form of Joelinton, Shelvey and Willock, that Bruno just couldn't walk into that starting team. The rest of them did. Matt Targett walked into the team, Dan Burns walked into it, but Bruno couldn't because of the form of that midfield 3. But he's got into it now recently. He's now started 6 games for Newcastle, 2 in the last 5 days or whatever, and he's looking like why we know they paid 40 million. So, like I said, my argument's somewhat weakened, but their form hasn't turned around in the last 2 games. They aren't winning games because Bruno's starting. They were winning games while he was sat on the bench. That's the reason he was sat on the bench. He couldn't get into the team. But it looks like it's going to be a brilliant investment. I didn't know much about him. I don't know a lot about French football. So when he come in, I couldn't really judge that transfer. However, I could judge the other ones. Matt Targett is a fantastic signing for him. On loan as well. Come in, solve that left-back situation. Has to be their number 1 transfer target in the summer. I believe he is their number 1 transfer target. And I guess the problem Newcastle have got is the fee. They've got no fee agreed with Aston Villa already. You know, I've seen it being tipped at around about 15 million, and I've seen it being reported at around 25 million. I'd imagine it'll be somewhere in the middle. But almost like, I think Eddie Howe could do with taking Matt Targett out of the team now and saying, listen mate, I'm not going to play you for the rest of the season, because all you're doing is driving your value up. Villa wanted 15, it's now 18, it's now 20. You keep doing this, it will be 30 million by the time the summer transfer window. I'd get him out of that team, put him on the bench, say, listen man, we're going to sign you in the summer, but put up a couple of bad performances, will you? Get that fee down. But what a signing he's been. He's come in, he's gone straight in, he's just solved that left back. Massive part of Newcastle going forward, massive part of Newcastle tightening up at the back. They're not faultless at the back, but they're a hell of a lot better under Eddie Howe than they were prior this season. Then we've got Dan Burn. Now this was always going to be a good signing. Buying a Newcastle fan in a relegation battle was always going to work. 10 million they paid for him, a relatively low fee for a very experienced Premier League defender. Now, I'm not Dan Burns' biggest fan. I think he's an average Premier League centre-back. But that's what Newcastle needed. They needed somebody that knew the league, that could come in and just do a job, just do the basics. Because the centre-backs up to this point weren't doing that. Lascelles seems to be injured every second week. Schär, to be fair, is looking good again, and I know his contract's running out, but he's certainly making a case to get his contract renewed. But their centre-backs, Fernandes, I thought was really good last season. This season, not really. So their centre-backs just wasn't quite working. Dan Burns gone in there and just stayed in that team and just sorted out the defence. So between him and Target, that left side of their defence sorted. For 10 million quid, they've sorted 2 positions in their defence. That's fantastic value. Absolutely brilliant. Now, Kieran Trippier obviously cost a bit more at 20 million or thereabouts on the right-hand side of the defence. Looked fantastic when he came in. And this is where I will concede that the January transfer window, sort of Newcastle only won because of the January transfer window, because obviously he scored a couple of winners from his free kicks. But again, he's played, 4 games I think he's played. 4 games. You can't then say that he's had this huge impact when he's only played 4 games. In those 4 games he had a big impact, but then he got injured, come out the team, and I wondered, well, what are you going to do now? Because he was that important, he scored a couple of goals. How are you going to do it, Eddie Howe? They've been fine. They've been fine. If Kieran Trippier was fit tomorrow, he'd walk back into the team because he's that good. But they're coping without him. They are coping without him. And then we've got the last one, Chris Wood. Now this is where I find it really lazy. Chris Wood, and this is where I might annoy a few Newcastle fans, he wasn't signed to provide for Newcastle. Let's be honest, we all know why Newcastle signed Chris Wood, and that was to kick Burnley into that bottom 3. It's worked. It's worked. Burnley are in the bottom 3. It's gone on to be that they've sacked the manager as well. So the signing of Chris Wood, I know it was 25 million and it was a lot of money, but it's actually cheap if you remain in the Premier League. If Newcastle stayed up, it justified buying Chris Wood for 25 million. They've stayed up. It's justified buying Chris Wood. He scored 2 goals in 14 games for Newcastle. This guy's not come in and scored the goals to keep him up. This guy's came away from Burnley and not scored the goals to put Burnley down, if that makes sense. But you can't measure that. You can't measure the success on Eddie Howe and these results that he's done. You can't say, well, it's because of January. Hang on, 25 million was almost. I know he's been gone in their team, and I know he's had some good games, and his game isn't just about scoring goals. It's about his hold-up play and his build-up play. But let's be honest, Newcastle fans, you're going to replace him in the summer. He will not be your first choice striker next summer. He wouldn't even be your second choice. Callum Wilson will be the second choice or first choice, but you'll still go and acquire another centre forward, and you should. Whether it is Ivan Toney, whether it is the guy over in France, I can't remember his name. I should remember it. West Ham were linked to him a lot as well. The young lad. No, it's not coming to me. Anyway, you're going to get a centre forward. Why? Because Chris Wood was never the long-term solution. It was a case of let's just get him because we can. We'll have an experienced Premier League striker up there between now and the end of the season. But the most important thing is it kicks Burnley down. And that's okay. Do I agree with it? Not really. I think it's a horrible thing. I feel sorry for Burnley. I felt sorry for Burnley. Still kind of do. A bit of that's gone away now. The sacks run down. But still feel a little bit sorry for them. But what it did was what it was meant to do, put Burnley in trouble. And like I always say to people though, Chris Wood was hardly banging in the goals for Burnley before Newcastle pinched him. He was not doing that. But what it did do was cause disruption at Burnley to some extent. We saw them getting a couple of games delayed for COVID, doing the Newcastle thing, getting a couple of games delayed for COVID while they tried to buy another striker. So it's just upset the apple cart at Turf Moor, and it's done enough. But my point is, you can't then use this Chris Wood thing to almost disregard the job that Eddie Howe's done. Do you know what I mean? Why is Chris Wood a successful signing? Because of what's done to Burnley. Well, that then doesn't mean that that's why Eddie Howe's doing well. There's no correlation there. But I think Eddie Howe's done a fantastic job. They're playing good football at the minute. And one of the big contributing factors towards Newcastle staying up this season is something Eddie Howe did that cost nothing, transforming Joelinton into a centre midfielder. Stroke of genius. When I watch Newcastle now, one of the best players on the pitch pretty much every week, and if he's not a man of match, he's working his nuts off, he's giving 100%, he's up and down that pitch, and he's almost irreplaceable at Newcastle now because they don't have anyone else with that style of play, with that energy levels that he's got. Willock is having a good season as well. I guess he's not too dissimilar from Joelinton, but different players. Shelvey's now playing quarterback football at Newcastle, pinging the ball all over the gap. They're a joy to watch. They're no longer a one-man team. It felt like they were with St. Maximin. It felt like it was a bit if he turns up, we'll do alright, but if he don't turn up, we're in trouble. That's gone now. St. Maximum is no longer irreplaceable. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of St. Maximum. It's not that I don't like him, I don't know how to describe it. I probably admire other things about Newcastle than St. Maximum, if that makes sense. The step over stuff, it's entertaining, but that's all it is for me. I think Yolenton's impressed me more than what St. Maximum has, for example. I think Matt Target at left back's probably impressed me more than what St. Maximum has. A wonderful player on his day, but that's gone now. I think if he's out of form and Newcastle were to bench him, they'd still be fine. They'd still go on and possibly win the game. They're in brilliant form. And the one thing that annoyed me the most, this irritated me, when Newcastle got Eddie Howe in, people said, oh, is he the right manager? Never been in a relegation battle. You what? What? This guy was manager of Bournemouth. This guy was a manager of a club punching above his weight for years. The energy that's been given to Sean Dyche at the minute, which is Burnley only stayed in the Premier League because of Sean Dyche. Surely you can say that about Bournemouth. Bournemouth only stayed in the Premier League for this long because Eddie Howe had them punching above their weight. Now, yes, I know he spent a lot of money, but that is partly because Eddie Howe got them into the Premier League, so they had money to spend. Ended up, obviously, with them getting relegated, but Bournemouth was always going to be like a short stay in the Premier League, just like what Burnley was. I say a short stay, they were there for a few seasons, as is Burnley. But relegation eventually was always inevitable due to the size of the club. Eddie Howe had them somewhere they shouldn't be. Now, they are going to come back up this season by the looks of it, but Eddie Howe was battling relegation every season at Bournemouth. The fact that they weren't in a relegation battle doesn't mean they weren't in one. It's just that he had done such a good job to keep them clear of relegation. But at the start of every single season in the Premier League, when Bournemouth were there with Eddie Howe, Bournemouth were 5th or 6th favourites for the drop. Now, before the season, if you said to me, your team is 5th most likely to go down according to the bookies, that's a relegation battling team. Going by the bookies' prediction and expectation, of course, but generally, they get stuff right, bookies. Let's be honest, they do. They make a few errors, but generally speaking, they know what they're talking about. And I just found it a very lazy thing. I thought Eddie Howe's got years of battling relegation in the Premier League. He's exactly what Newcastle's needed. He's gone in there. He's done a wonderful job. I don't think he's getting near enough plaudits as he should. And I understand why to some extent, because there's a jealousy and just in other parts of football there's like an anger towards the ownership of Newcastle. And I think that stops people praising the job Eddie Howe's done. And I think it's important to look at what Eddie Howe's doing as a manager and separate that from the ownership of Newcastle. Of course, the funds then help Eddie Howe, but Eddie Howe isn't responsible for what the owners have done in the past or will do in the future. Eddie Howe is responsible for the management of the team at Newcastle, and he's doing a fantastic job. And for all their January transfer signings, for Bruno's 40 million and Kieran Trippier's 20 and Chris Wood's 25, for all that money Eddie Howe spent and Newcastle spent, the best signing Newcastle United have made this season isn't any of those players. It's Eddie Howe as manager. Anyway, there you go. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to Tartan Geo channel. And I'll be back next week with some more ramblings about something going on in the Premier League. Catch you in a bit.